Hi guys, it's me and Philip. Today, Dr. Clark had a conflict in his schedule. He really could not reschedule, so we're going to miss him today, but we're going to have a great conversation. Of course, welcome to Leadership Conversations, and this week is a very hot topic. We're talking about leadership stress. It's huge. It's a big deal. We all deal with it. Y'all know how I feel about leadership, but we're going to kick the show off real quick. And Dr. Foster, tell the folks who you are for our newbies to the show.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Foster. I'm stationed out of Cincinnati, Ohio, there in the Midwest, and I am a futurist, and I am keenly interested in the future of business and the 21st century workplace. And so a lot of the studying and writing that I do currently is focused on what the future of work may look like and where we're headed and what we're currently dealing with. And so I'm an author of several books, and we'll talk about that later on in the show. Great to be here.
Awesome. And you guys, I'm Dr. Ace, the Global Mentor Coach. I'm excited to be here. I'll talk more about what I'm doing and, all the good stuff I have. I'm an author, mentor, coach, leadership specialist, all that good stuff. But I really want to dive into today's topic. It's something that affects all of us, no matter if you are in Ohio, in the Midwest, here in Florida, in Connecticut, where Dr. Clark is, in Virginia, where Dr. Sturdivant is, in Georgia, where Dr. Wallace is. Even if you're in California, I was in a radio interview yesterday, and the gentleman that I shared the interview with was all the way in Sacramento. Regardless of where you are, leadership stress as a whole is going to find its way knocking on your door. It's not ideal, but that's what happens. So today, we're going to talk about, really dig into this topic. And so let's first start off by defining what stress is and how it shows up in the life of leaders. So what are your thoughts, Dr. Foster, on this whole concept of stress and how it, kind of finds its way into everything?
Well, I am by no stretch of the imagination a medical doctor, so I cannot speak with full confidence on what I'm about to say, but I know a little bit about it from personal experience. Stress is not just a physical manifestation, but an emotional or mental manifestation of how we process challenges in our life. And stress, I don't see stress as just a leadership issue. Obviously, it's an issue that affects just about everyone at some level. We can talk about historical evidence of stress going all the way back to ancient texts. Just from a Christian worldview, they talk about how when Jesus was, getting ready to go to the crucifixion or the cross, that he sweat blood, and that is a manifestation of an internal process going on. There was so much pressure. I can speak from my standpoint. Years ago, I was a chief financial officer for a company, and I was under such pressure and stress from dealing with the day-to-day operation. And when you're dealing with $25 million worth of money that doesn't belong to you, there's a lot of pressure on you. Now, when I say pressure, it was the point where my eyes would hurt. Now, I found out later from a doctor that meant my blood pressure was extremely dangerously high. And it's a wonder I didn't stroke out, actually. But I would go home and actually lay down and close my eyes because my eyes felt like they were going to pop out of my head. So that is a true manifestation of stress. How does it show up in the life of an individual or a leader? Well, I think that for me, it was taking on things in my workday that probably I could have shared the burden. I could have asked other people to help me, and instead I carried it with me. It's like carrying a secret. At some point, it's going to be exposed either by explosion or someone else is going to pull it out of you. So stress is the same way. It's going to blow up. I count it as like You take a pot or you take a pressure cooker and you put it on the stove and you cut off all forms of excess or exit for any steam, that pot will blow up. And that's the same way that we as humans are, our physical bodies are. We will blow up. You'll either have an aneurysm, a heart attack, or a stroke, or a meltdown of some sort, physical and emotional and otherwise. So that's what stress is to me. That's some examples that I'll talk about later that of how it affects me and has affected me. And and it shows up in the life of a leader because we let it, I think.
I agree with all of that. I think stress is just, it's psychological triggers. And it's also how the body responds to it. Like you said, stress comes in a lot of different formats. And I agree with you, it's how we respond to it. Stress can be a good thing, but we don't, too often we don't know how to make stress work for us, if that makes sense. Instead of using it as fuel to help us pump through the day, we let it turn into anxiety, and it becomes toxic. When it becomes toxic to us emotionally, it physically becomes toxic to our bodies because, now we have headaches and migraines, and we have, skin breakouts, and, our hair falls out, or so there's always something that
goes gray.
We get stuff, Dr. Clark has talked about this, before, and he and I have had some offline conversations, where, stress got to him so much that he developed alopecia, and he lost his hair, and I have stress spots sometimes, and sometimes you don't recognize that you're stressed until your body starts telling you that you're stressed. Yep. And I think that's why they say stress is a silent killer, because you don't know sometimes that you're stressed, because living life like this is normal to you, when really the body is saying this is not supposed to be normal. And, it may be something like, especially showing up in the life of the leader, it could be something like your situation where you're handling millions of dollars of money that doesn't belong to you. So it's like, oh my God, I can't make a mistake because, so much risk. Or, a world leader, for instance, you can look at every president of the United States going back to history. When they come in, what does their hair look like? When they leave, what do their hair look like? They all got a head full of gray hair. But when you come in, they don't have that much gray hair. Why? Because the job is stressful, because you have so much in your hand. And it's like, I have all this responsibility. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I got all these lives. And it's about finding a healthy balance between your responsibility and, the decisions that you make, and being confident that you made the right decisions. You're not going to please everybody all the time. We've said this before on this show. So why let that become a stress trigger for you? That's kind of, where we are with the whole issue of stress and how it enters into our lives. Like you said, we let it come into our lives. This is the bottom line. We let it come into our lives because we don't manage it properly. And that's a great segue into our next point about stress is, what are some of the ways stress impacts leaders, physical, emotional, mental, financial? We've already kind of touched on this before in our previous response. It shows up, in hair loss and skin. Some people gain weight. Some people lose weight. Some people have migraine headaches, and it gives them, sometimes it spikes your blood pressure. It takes a financial toll on you because you're spending money and you're doing all this stuff to try to fix something when really you probably just need to take a step back. I think that's why a lot of doctors sometimes, instead of prescribing medicine, they prescribe vacations.
Come on,
you need to go on a vacation, unplug, no access to email, phone, nothing that would allow you contact with your stress trigger, because it's necessary. Vacations are healthy. I love what other countries are doing, where they are requiring companies, they are requiring vacation, like mandatory vacation, 2 weeks out of the year, 1 month out of the year, whatever it is. I love that whole concept because it really does increase productivity, because now your stress level is down and you can focus. When you're stressed, you're not focused. You think you are, but you're not. You're running on fumes, and that's not good for anybody. You, your company, anybody. So Dr. Foster, what do you think about, ways that stress impacts leaders?
Well, you certainly did list a lot of the things that I had been writing down in my little journal here. We talked about this journal last time, so you want to check out the previous version of this. Obviously, yes, health, headaches, blood pressure, GERD, gastro problems, like acid reflux and the like, which actually I suffered from during my time under all that pressure. You mentioned weight gain, and then you said weight loss. It's interesting because most people don't recognize that weight loss can be a manifestation of stress.
Right.
A lot of times we make jokes and we make light of the fact, oh, people are, overweight or whatever. And the reality is it goes both ways. Right. For me, I may, that someone may eat their way through stress. For me, I may not eat. I mean, my modus operandus, if you will, is that I probably will skip meals because I'm so focused on getting things done. But the other thing is, along with weight gain, weight loss, and the health side of it, is that we don't eat healthy. And like for me, there was a time where I was working and I would drink so much coffee that you could literally see my hand shaking.
Wow.
You would have thought, I was in my 30s, you would have thought I had Parkinson's or something, because I would hold my hands out and you could see them shaking.
Wow.
But, now, nothing, just because I'm drinking water. But, we need to eat healthy.
Right.
And that could mean multiple snacks throughout the day where you're like eating, nuts or fruits or something. You have maybe a little bowl on your desk and you're eating, drinking plenty of water, staying hydrated, carrots, those type of things. Eat healthy, stay healthy. Again, I'm not an expert in this area, but I can tell you what's worked for me. The other place that, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it or not, but the other place that we see this manifest itself is in sleep, sleep patterns. I know for me, when I'm under stress or I'm ruminating on something, probably not giving it up or giving it over to some higher power or other thought process, I may wake up in the middle of the night, insomnia. I may be dead dog tired at 9 o'clock and go to sleep and I'm up at 3. I got 6 hours of sleep, but I'm still exhausted by the time I get up. Another way we see this manifest is in people will tend to drink and do other drugs and things, or smoke, do other things that are unhealthy for their body. And certainly some other areas that this manifests as well or impacts leaders is making bad decisions. We lose mental acuity. I call it mental fog. Because you're not sleeping, you're not eating right, you're in a funk, you're just not able to be creative. Lack of focus and creativity is all some ways that this impacts leaders, and not just leaders, again, others as well. But I think we as leaders carry so much more because we look around, and I truly believe even Steve Jobs, who has been bastardized in leadership books, is like the worst example of a leader in some cases. I really think that he cared about his people and his company. And so I think that people that really care probably carry more than they should. And so, leaders do carry this because they have to answer to shareholders or stakeholders. They have to answer to the employees. They have to answer to the board. They have to answer to, if there's a boss above them, they have to answer to that boss. They have to answer to the shareholders and why they didn't make profit. I mean, there's so many answer to the customer. I mean, there's so many places that we carry stress. And so those are some examples as well. So there you go.
It's funny. It's ironic because some of the things that you wrote that you were talking about was exactly what I was writing down. And right when you were getting ready to say it, I wrote it down. But I agree with you when, stress skews your choices, the decisions that you make. It really does, because you think you're making the right decisions because you're operating on this toxic autopilot. And that's what stress does. It puts you into a place of delusion where you believe the way you are functioning is normal when it is not. So that's the one thing. And again, yeah, it leads to poor eating habits and other bad habits. So you may take up other bad habits and not related to stress, whether it's smoking or some other drug or, something else. Some people they may work out, for instance, to manage their stress, but they may do it to an extreme. So now you're putting that stress into something that's supposed to be good for you, but it's turning toxic because you don't know how to manage it, because you don't realize that you're going overboard with something. And that's why we see people who are just doing too much to themselves, because they're trying to find a way to release something that's really psychological, when really you need to look for a healthier way to manage it and possibly find the root cause of your stress, because until you find the root cause of your stress, you won't understand what's triggering it. And, later on, it becomes another trigger and another trigger and another trigger until you kind of pull that root system up. And like Dr. Foster said, your mind doesn't shut off. What I like about Fitbits, I don't have one, but I do know about the Fitbit. My friend has one. I like the fact that it monitors your sleep patterns. When you think you're sleeping, she would sleep for 6, 7, 8 hours. But when she woke up and checked her sleep pattern, it has a whole account and all this kind of stuff, she literally would only sleep and rest 2 hours, 3 hours a night. But what's happening? The other 4, 5, 6, 7 hours that you're sleeping, you're not really getting rest. Why? Because your mind isn't shutting off. So now you're stressed even in your sleep.
Yep.
Like in your sleep, you're stressed. That's not healthy. That's not good. So you're functioning. You're literally a walking zombie through the day. You think you're wide awake, but your body is telling you, no, there's something deeper that you've got to deal with. So if you don't have a Fitbit or some other way to monitor your sleep, I really recommend that you find a way to do that so that you can see just how much sleep you're really getting throughout the night. And that can really probably start to maybe lay a foundation to show you some things in your life, because it also monitors your heart rate and all this other kind of stuff. So if your heart rate is high, but you don't feel that your heart rate is high, that means you're walking in an abnormal state. The body's not meant for you to constantly be, functioning at an abnormal high rate of high blood pressure, or your heart rate going that fast constantly, because eventually that's going to weigh, and that's too much stress on your heart, which will lead to other issues. So, you want to take a look at that.
I wanted to mention a couple other things while we're thinking of it before we go on to the next one. There's a couple other things that manifest themselves that I see with people, because you and I both coach leaders. And a couple of things that I've seen, I talked about drinking, drugs, and addictions. One of the biggest things that I see, particularly among men, leaders that are men, is sexual addiction. Also, I find with people that are dealing with high levels of stress that they're typically feelings of loneliness because they're in a state of isolation. They get more and more isolated as their stress creates. Because first of all, nobody wants to be around them because they're an angry bear or something. Yeah. Second of all, because they don't want to be around anyone. So you find them isolating. And the other thing is, and this is a conversation that I had recently with a dentist friend of mine. We find a lot of people get TMJ or lockjaw, and a lot of grinding of teeth, and a lot of oral problems come from that, teeth falling out and different things. So, you talk about hair falling out. We don't think about teeth falling out.
Right.
So these are all parts of health and eating right and sleeping right and taking care of yourself. So I wanted to mention those things before we popped on to something else.
Yeah. And as you were talking, this is something that I wrote down too. When you're stressed, you lash out at people. You don't know that your tone and how you communicate is a little abrupt.
Yes.
I think, when you talked about Steve Jobs, it was just how he communicated. It was the way he came across. There's a way to be direct without being aggressive. And sometimes when you are stressed, you're aggressive and don't even know you're aggressive. So you become a waxing toxic waste dump. you're receiving waste. And so as you receive waste, that's all you're giving off. You don't have anything good coming in. So nothing but bad is coming out. So, you're kind of on an emotional roller coaster, like Dr. Foster was saying. But another thing that I noticed too is depression.
Yep.
And, depression leads to a lot of different things. And this is why we see high rates of suicide among leaders. And we wonder, well, how could that happen? How could that happen? People are depressed. Well, how can they be depressed? They have everything. You don't really know if they have everything.
You don't know what they have. Yeah.
And, Robin Williams comes to mind. He seemed like such a happy person, but you don't know the internal struggle of stress that may have been bothering him for so many years that manifested in suicide. And we see this often, people jumping off of buildings and things like that, because when you are stressed, you don't feel like you have hope. You feel hopeless and helpless. You feel like even when you try to reach out, it's pointless because you're not getting what you feel you need, when really you don't really know what you need.
Yep.
You're reaching out and people probably are giving you what you need, but because you have so much toxic and you haven't gotten to the root of the trigger, you don't think they're responding, because now you're looking for a specific response that people don't know you want. But that's what stress does. It leads you into a state of delusion again, because you're expecting responses that you're not getting. So now you kind of, woe is me, nobody cares. And, people are making light of my situation. That's not the case. You're just in, like Dr. Foster said, you're in a fog. You're in a headspace that's toxic. And people are responding to what you're giving off, but you don't see that you're giving that off, and you don't know that. So they're trying to respond to you in the best way. And oftentimes, a lot of times, people will probably respond with kid gloves when really they need to take the gloves off and probably need to punch you in your face. They probably need to come hard at you and say, wake up, like you need a shaking wake up, or something. And I really believe that sometimes coming to a coach is great, but there are some things that all coaches can't give you. All coaches aren't counselors. So sometimes what you need as a leader, yes, a coach is great, but you might need a counselor. You may need therapy, and there's nothing wrong with therapy. Let's put a pin in this real quick and say this. Therapy is healthy and it's good. Everybody at some point, especially if you're stressed, you're going through, you need to talk to somebody. I don't care if it's your minister at church, at a church, or licensed psychotherapist or whatever. Therapy is healthy and is good, especially if you are a leader, especially if you're a global leader. If you have a lot on your plate, like Dr. Foster said, he had millions of dollars of money coming through his hands at one time, and you have all of this pressure and stress on you. And you got all of these stakeholders that you have to think about, and that's just your job. So now let's add life and family and finances and community and wars and rumors of war. And now it's like, okay, how are you going to let that? It's like, relax, release. But if you don't have anybody that's going to help you figure out how to relax, relate, release, you're never going to relax, relate, release. You're always going to have toxic, because all you have is toxic coming in. So the only thing that's coming out is toxic. So that alone is enough to make you depressed, but you can't walk around. Stress is one of those things that has you walking around feeling hopeless and helpless. And that can lead to all other kinds of things. And it's just bad for everybody.
Yep.
Dr. Foster?
So, I was thinking about a scenario where it becomes, like we talk about stress in the office place, and,
right.
We bring it on ourselves. But what about stress that we don't intentionally bring on ourselves? Like, for example, I've worked with clients that have a health emergency in their family.
Mm-hmm.
Someone real close to them, a child or a spouse or a parent is ailing or in some sort of crisis, and that is very stressful. And so if we go back to what you said about therapy or counseling, I think there is a need to be able to recognize the difference between emotional need and physical need. You know, there's nothing wrong with talking to someone. I like to explain it this way. You know, I'm a coffee drinker, and I've mentioned coffee here already a couple of times. It should be walking billboard for Juan Valdez. So I talk about coffee. Now, if you've ever had a good latte, you know, there's a little bit of coffee and then there's all of this foam. Now, I think that our lives, our inner being is like a cup of latte. There's a little bit of coffee down the bottom, and there's all this fluffy foam and all this goodness. Well, what happens is when we have something going on in our lives, either we're handling $25 million all by ourselves, or we're isolating and doing drugs, or we got someone in crisis in our family. And so what we're doing is we're not just taking the good coffee and pouring there. What we've done is we've gone to the coffee pot that's been sitting there for 5 days cooking, is a nasty black gunky sludge. Maybe he has some, you know, coffee grounds built into it, and we start pouring that into this good cup of coffee.
Wow.
Well, what happens over time is the good stuff starts to rise, and the bad stuff is, of course, heavier and more dense, so it's going down, and it's pushing the good coffee and the good foam out over the edge of the coffee pot, coffee mug, and it just flows right out. And pretty soon, your cup begins to overflow with this junk.
Right.
And that is stress.
Right.
And the question is, how do we empty out that stress? Well, one of the ways that you empty it out, and the only way is to pour it out. And the way you pour something out physically is to speak about it, to just talk about it to someone. You're not looking for someone to fix it. You're looking to express it, to get it. You know, when we say express, it means to get away from, to move it from you.
Right.
And so, man, I feel like I'm preaching now. So
you're doing good, man. It's
physical.
Good.
But there's another way that we can physically remove that sludge from our coffee mug, and that is to go exercise. You know, I used to have a boss years ago when I first started out in the business world, and I was a grant writer. And grant writing is very stressful because you have to be accurate and you have to be right on it. And my boss used to come to me, and he was the boss, the top boss. The only people that he answered to was a board of directors. And he used to say, you know, Philip, you need to go take your shoes off and your socks off, and you go stand in the grass and close your eyes and feel the grass on your toes.
Right.
Now, as ridiculous as that sounds, even now as I'm saying it, you know, there's no religion involved in that. There's no, you know, rub a crystal and you're one with the universe. There's none of that. What it is about removing yourself from the situation and creating a tactile situation that jars you out of that moment of stress.
That's right.
You could go lay out in a hammock. For me, and you know, people who know me hear me talk about it all the time, and I think I posted it on my Facebook page today. My happy place is the mountains. Let me tell you something. Hiking is work. It is hard work. You get blisters, your ankles hurt, your knees hurt, your back hurts. You walk and walk and walk and walk and walk. And I'm talking serious hiking. But for me, there is nothing better to express or empty out my cup than going out into nature, into the woods, into God's country, as I call it, and just being there. You're breathing in the air, you're breathing out, you're exercising, you're away from the noise. That's what works for me. I know we're getting ready to talk about navigating stress, but that's what works for me.
No, I think it's a great segue. And as you were talking, I was writing down some things. The first thing you said when you were giving your analogy about the coffee and the espresso, I wrote down, you can't put new wine into old wine skins.
Oh, now we're talking, yeah.
You've got to, it's like a shedding. I don't like nature. I'm girly, I'm bougie.
Oh, come on. I'll take you hiking.
Nah, I'm good. But, you know, I do, it's crazy, but sometimes I like to watch Nature Channel and learning about animals. And there are animals that shed their skin. You know, we all know about snakes shedding their skins, but butterflies and, you know, all this kind of stuff. The one I love the most is the caterpillar. because a butterfly can't become a butterfly until the caterpillar goes into that cocoon and goes through a process to shed and comes out. You know, in order for a snake to grow, guess what it's got to do? It's got to shed that old dead skin, and it allows it to grow and keep pushing the boundaries of, you know. So as you were talking about the latte and all and the coffee, you just can't put new stuff in the old stuff, because the new stuff is just going to get muddied and become old dead stuff. And we want to try to resurrect ourselves and come to life, but we don't want to deal with the dead stuff. We don't want to deal with the stuff that's killing us, that's causing us to slowly die and decompose. But that's necessary. We've got to kind of shed that old wineskin, got to shed that old nature of who we are in order to grow in our leadership style. So I might be comfortable with this style of leadership, but where I am now compared to where I was, this won't work. But I'm comfortable stuck with this, but I don't see that it's not working because I'm trying to force something from here to work here. And it's not, that's not the case. And that, guess what that does? Now I'm creating stress on myself. I'm creating unnecessary stress. Why? Because I don't want to let go, but letting go is necessary for you to grow as a leader. Otherwise, you're creating stress, unnecessary stress, and bringing that into an environment that's probably already got enough stress of its own. But because I don't want to let go, now it's, you know. So the next thing you said about the grass, I love that, because I thought about being like a little child. You know, it's just like Jesus said, you know, in the Bible, unless you become like a little child, you know. Children have an innocence, and if you think back to when you were a child, the world was your oyster. It was just imaginations galore. What did you do? You just had fun. You stuck your feet in, and you didn't have no problem taking your shoes off. You weren't thinking about no germs and no bugs getting in your foot and getting bit by anything. You touching frogs and butterflies and ladybugs and all this other kind of stuff. Or you lay in the grass with no blanket because you're not worried about ants crawling on you or any other bug. You just laying there looking at the clouds, pointing out that cloud looks like a dog, that one looks like this, that one looks like that. But what did that do? Children have no stress. They don't worry about anything. They have this mind that's open and free. And what a good leader does is allow you to do that same thing, be open and free. But we don't know how to do that because we're too busy trying to be deep and serious. And really, sometimes we need to just be open and free and just, like, you know, hear the angels sing. I don't know, but sometimes that's what we need. And the last thing I wrote down that you were talking about was you need an outlet. I don't care what it is. Everybody needs an outlet.
That's right.
You know, it might be exercise, it might be hiking, it might be writing, it might be reading, it might be going for a walk on the beach, it might just be sitting at the beach, it might just be going to the pool, whatever it is, it might be kickboxing, I don't care. Everybody needs an outlet. I paint, I write, I go to the beach, I exercise, I have lots of different outlets. And I notice that when I don't exercise or use any of my outlets, I'm stressed, I'm frustrated. I have all this toxic because I'm not letting it out in some way. That's healthy. And it's important. Otherwise, because if I don't let it out, then it's going to come out in an unhealthy way. And I'm going to end up hurting people that I don't want to hurt. I don't mean to hurt them. But if I'm not doing what I need to do to be a better person, to navigate stress, because let's face it, we all got stuff going on. It ain't like my life is better or worse than the next person. This is not a competition of who got the most stress. That's kind of stupid. I don't understand people who feel like they got to be in a competition, like, oh, you know, you think you got it bad, man. I got it. That to me doesn't make any sense. Why not focus on what do you do to manage and handle and get through what you do every day? People ask me all the time, like, I keep a calendar. That's how I stay organized. I mean, but how do I walk, I meditate, I exercise. I thank God I got cleared to exercise again because I missed it. But, you know, I paint sometimes, you know, I write. Sometimes it's just going and sitting at the beach. Water is very calming to me. Like I don't have to ever get in, but just being around the water and hearing the ocean waves, or just going to the pool and looking at the ripple of the just calming and soothing. And I just feel like I can just exhale. And sometimes you don't need to be out there all day. It might just be 5-10 minutes. But
That's right.
You just need some way to let out what you hold in, because it's going to be good for everybody overall.
So I was thinking about why do we stay in an uncomfortable place?
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about moving from one place to the other, and I was thinking, why do we stay in that place? So there's this fear of going to this new place,
right?
And the reality is, change is painful. Sometimes we have to break through the membrane of pain. It's a birthing, if you will.
Man.
And I often, when I'm working with clients, I'll tell them when they're going through this moment of painful change, where they know they've got to do it, but they don't want to do it because they're afraid of the pain. Here's what I tell them. When the pain of where you are is greater than the pain of where you need to go, you will change.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as the pain, whether it's relative or not, feels like it's less than where you need to go, you will never change.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something, when your stress level is up and up and up, the only logical thing to do is change.
That's right.
But too many people stay here, and this is deadly.
Right.
This is deadly. I talk about the 21st century workplace all the time. And, one of the things that I'm finding is that organizations are getting more and more serious about creating workplaces that have a happiness quotient, that they're focused on happiness.
Right.
I had a student recently writing a discussion answer, and they were saying that they weren't convinced about this happiness thing. They thought it was a fad or whatever. And, I can understand the skepticism because they're a non-traditional student. They're about my age, maybe older. And so I can understand the skepticism because that's not the way we were raised. You're not supposed to be happy. You're supposed to get out there and work hard. It don't matter if you're happy or not. Get out there and do your job. And, that's just the way it is.
Right.
But in the 21st century workplace, there's really a strong sense of understanding what happiness is. And I'm not talking about happiness. You gave me $100 the street. I'm talking about feeling good about yourself, not being stressed out all the time, being creative, being a part of the solution and the process, not being a part of the problem. And so I do think that our role as leaders is to create an atmosphere or an environment, not just in ourselves, but around us, that is conducive to incubating others' happiness in stress-free lives.
Right. I had to write down that whole break through the membrane of change thing because that was just so good. I was just talking with someone yesterday and something that they talked about birthing and trusting the process. As a leaders, your whole focus and point is to grow. And
right.
to get better and to go from one level. It's just like the Bible says, we go from one level of glory to another level of glory to another level of glory. As a leader, if you are serious about leadership and growing and maturing and being better, you should be growing. You shouldn't be happy right here. You should constantly be striving for more and greater. But there's a process to that. And too many of us fight the process, which creates stress. Why? Like Dr. Foster said, change is painful. It's hard. Why? Because we're going to a level of unknown. And too many people are comfortable. So we want to bring what's comfortable with us so that now we have something we can stand on or rely on, something that's familiar. But what's familiar to you may not be good for you right here. So it was good for you here. It may have been good for the past 3 or 4 levels that you grew. But now you're with the big boys. Now you're at a totally different level of leadership. So it requires more for you. What was good here is no longer good here.
That's right.
And it might just be a simple step, but it's a big enough step to where what was good here that you were comfortable with, that you could relate to, doesn't work here. And that's stressful and it's scary, but it's like Dr. Foster said, he said it differently. I always say what you want has to be greater than what you are afraid of. So if you want more leadership and you want more for yourself and you want to keep expanding and growing, that has to be greater than what you're afraid of, which is the unknown. So, I mean, you're going to have to make that step, which is stressful. That in and of itself is stressful. But what will compound that stress is if you don't let go of what you need to let go of.
That's right.
Here. And that may include people. Because everybody, let's be honest with you, people are probably the number one source of stress of other people. But we don't want to let go. And sometimes some people aren't ready. And some people don't want you to do better. They'll fool you into thinking they're supporting you when they're really not supporting you because they don't want you to go. Why? Because they don't want to go, because they're afraid.
That's right.
But why would you allow someone else's level of fear to become your level of fear? So now you don't keep striving for what you want to strive for as a leader, and now you're down to their level. But this creates more frustration for you because you know you don't belong here. You don't belong here.
That's right.
You're frustrated, and that's more stress for you. See, there's two types of leaders. There's those who soar high. They go for the high-hanging fruit, and those who like low-hanging fruit. I've already said this before. I don't do low-hanging fruit. This is a place of frustration for me. Like, it irritates me to no end. This is a dark place for me. I'm going to be real with y'all. This is a transparent show. It is what it is. Low-hanging fruit is a dark place for me. So I don't know. This is an easy trigger for me to recognize low-hanging fruit because it brings on all kinds of stuff I don't like. So I automatically know I don't need to be bothered here. I can't. This is not where I operate. I can't even breathe in this atmosphere because it's too low. It's too low and toxic for me. So I don't operate in low-hanging fruit. And I realize that there are people who this is their domain, and I respect that. But at the same time, people have to respect that there are people who can't flow in that domain. We're up here. And it's not saying that we're up here looking down. We're up here appreciating that there has to be people down here.
That's right.
Otherwise, there would never be a need for people up here. And vice versa. We all flow off of each other. It's just where we operate and function and exist better. Like I exist, but I'm at my best when I'm here. I'm honestly no good to anybody who loves low-hanging fruit. I'm not good for you because I'm just not good for you. And I'm honest enough to say I'm not good for you. However, I know someone else in that area, in that zone, that is good, that can mentor you. Why? Because I recognize you're not ready to be up here.
Right.
The atmosphere is too high. You can't breathe where I am. And
you could be dangerous to them.
And I can't kill you like that because that's stress on me because I've taken on someone who I know doesn't have what it takes at this time to be at this altitude. So we sometimes create unnecessary stress. So how do you navigate that? Just say no and recognize where you are and operate in that zone, in that realm. But it requires you to trust the process of leadership.
That's right. And, I just want to add to this. I look at it this way. People many times hold on to pain, hold on to stress, hold on to unhealthy things as if it were a secret lover.
Man, say that.
They hold on to it like it's a secret lover. And we need to stop the infidelity against ourselves. I'm not talking about infidelity against your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend. I'm talking about infidelity against self. You are doing things that are harmful to yourself, your peace, your prosperity, your tomorrow, when you hold on to things that don't belong to you like it's a secret lover. You're sneaking around, consciously or unconsciously, holding on to something that doesn't belong to you.
That's good.
Like I said, I feel like I'm preaching today.
Man, that's good stuff. Go ahead on.
We need to take this sermon on the road. You need to take this sermon on the road. I'm telling
you. That's good stuff though. And I love it because I just posted, I think yesterday or something, I was just talking about how we are our own worst enemy. We do the most damage to ourselves as people. And a lot of times we need to kind of stop that. Stop the train wreck before it starts, get off that train track and, kind of turn around, we worry so much thinking that it's other people. Oh, it's always other people. It's other people. No, sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's me. It's not everybody else. Who is the common denominator? If you are the common denominator and it's always something going on, it's time to look in the mirror. And I think that's the hardest part of the process as a leader is looking in the mirror and seeing yourself for who and really what you are. All the good, the bad, and in between. We only want to see the good. And we might be okay with everything in between, but we don't want to deal with the bad. But it's the bad stuff that's keeping the stuff away that we really want, because it's the bad stuff that's really telling people and things, and that don't work. So, man, that was good. It's just good stuff, man. So let's round this out real quick. We're almost out of time, but man, we've had such a good discussion today about stress. How can we impress upon emerging leaders the importance of regulating stress early on in their careers? And Dr. Farson, I think your experience that you shared with your leader really kind of set the stage for this answer. I think it was just so profound, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's what I want to say to any leader, either an emerging leader or a current leader. First of all, you need to be transparent. Mm-hmm. You need to have transparency and accountability. Now, transparency means that you're open and honest with yourself and others around you. Mm-hmm. And accountability means you've got a coach and or mentor that you're working with. But here's the other thing I wanted to say about this. Don't hire yes people. Yes. If you've got people that can't tell you the truth mm-hmm. and speak to you respectfully, of course, I'm not talking about someone that gets in your face in your business all the time. I'm talking about people that work with you, not for you, with you. That's Stop hiring people to work for you. You need people that work with you and join your team and be interested and invested in your mission, your goals, your vision. Stop hiring people to work for you. Hire them to work with you. Stop hiring yes people. I'm going to tell you right now, every time I've ever interviewed for a job where I was going to be in some sort of leadership position and reported to either the CEO, owner, or another higher level individual, I would say to them exactly this in the interview. If you're looking for a yes person, don't hire me. Right. Because I'm not going to be a lackey. That's right. Okay. And I also tell my coaching clients this. I work with executives. I work with some pretty public people. And I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of times public people, and when I'm talking public, I'm talking famous people, they can't work with someone who tells them the truth because they live in an imaginary world. I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of leaders are the same way. You may not be on TV or on the radio or in newspapers and in magazines and whatever. You may not be a jet setter. Okay? But you influence people. All right? And you have to hire people that are going to tell you the truth. You need to stop living in your imaginary world that you live in.
That's right.
Phew, I feel like I'm preaching now. But how can we impress? You've got to look in the mirror, as Dr. Hughes has said. Look in the mirror and say, this will not stand any longer. This has to change. Mm-hmm. Until you're willing to break through that membrane and say that the pain of where I'm at is not as great or is greater than where I need to go. And you've got to be honest with yourself and say, I'm tired of being in pain. I'm tired of losing sleep. I'm tired of losing hair. I'm tired of my weight gain, my weight loss, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever stress is manifesting in your life. Until you say, I'm tired of it, you're going to hold on to it like a secret lover.
Wow. I'm loving this secret lover thing. I'm telling you, I think that's going to be a whole series of tweets today for me. I just love that. I'm telling you, I just love that. So just look for your name in my tweets today. Dr.
All right.
Because, auntie, that was good stuff. Here's what I have. And, at the end of the day, you want partners in success.
That's right.
In your success. That's what you want. You want accountability partners. You want people who are really going to rally behind you. And that doesn't mean yes people. You want people who are going to challenge you. Not people who are going to challenge you who are abusive.
That's right.
But you do want people who are going to challenge you. And, there's ways for you to kind of interview people to see if they're going to be a good fit. Because you have to make sure that there's a good personality fit. Otherwise, you can't receive from people that you are clashing with. So I'm not saying, yes men doesn't have anything to do with personality. You want to make sure that the people who are partnering in your success, are a good fit for you, because only you know how you learn. Only you know how you can receive information, and only you know what you feel you need that's going to help you grow and develop. So my first point would be for partners looking for partners in success. Are they value-added people? That's right. Meaning, are they adding value to your life and to what you're planning to look for? In business, there's something called value added. And it's always talking about, resources and all the different things as an organization that you use, innovation and all this stuff that you can use. That includes Porter's 5 Forces model, all these different things, that adds value. What are these people doing? When you're looking for people, how can they add value to your life? What are the pros and cons of these people? What do they bring to the table? What can you learn from them? Can they define love? And I'm not talking about eros love, that sloppy agape. I'm not talking about, oh, baby. I'm talking about, can they define love? What is love in their eyes? Is it showing kindness and compassion and empathy towards your fellow brother, man, or woman? Not only can they define it, can they illustrate it, demonstrate it? Are they walking in love and kindness towards other people? Are they giving? If they aren't giving, they ain't loving. Because John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave.
That's right.
So if they're not giving, and I'm not talking about quid pro quo either, because love has nothing to do with quid pro quo. It's not a tit for tat. If I do this, then you gonna do. That's not love. Are they giving? Meaning, how unselfish are they in helping and taking care? What kind of commitment are they willing to make to invest in you? Are they transparent? But most of all, are they authentic? Because if they aren't authentic and real with you, then that means they're not authentic and real with themselves, which means they really can't add value to you, because all they're doing is selling you a lie. And if they're selling you a lie about who they are as a person, what else are they selling you a lie about as it relates to your career and your success? Now, as you grow and mature, these same things that you're looking for in a person, that's the same thing that you need to be. You need to be a value-added person. So you're looking for people who are going to help you be a value-added person to somebody else. You're looking to be able to define and demonstrate love to somebody else. You need to be transparent to somebody else. You've got to be authentic so you can be the real you with somebody else as you grow and develop the next person. That's how succession planning works. That's how this whole be the change you want to see in the world. That's how that works. It's not about making clones of yourself so much. It is you being able to identify greatness in somebody else and help them bring that out of themselves so they in turn can identify greatness in the next person. And it's a cycle that continues. So now we break all this toxic leadership that we see. And now we see people who add value to other people's lives, who can define and illustrate and demonstrate love consistently. Because they're not faking it to make it, but they genuinely love, meaning they're giving, they're unselfish, they love to serve, they're taking care of other people, they're transparent and authentic. That's partners in success. But these people who care enough about you to commit to supporting you, being your, kind of like your Aaron and her. We're going to hold up your arms. We're going to hold you accountable. I need you to see beyond. Maybe you need to go to the top of the mountain, Moses, because you're too depressed where you are. You need to get to a higher vantage point so you can see more. You need people like that who understand where you are in your life, because there's cycles to life. And you need people who are on your team who understand where you are so they can help you with that transition and explain, I've been there and I know exactly where you are. This is what you're about to experience. It is real and there's no running from it. You can face this or you can let it beat you down, but this is what I recommend. See, that's what you need. You need people who can do that, or they can say, I recognize where you are. I've not been there, but I want you to talk to somebody who has been there. Or I know somebody who's exactly where you are at the same time. Let me partner you together. So you can kind of rally each other together and talk off of each other and share some points. See, that's what you need. That's what Partners in Success do. That's how you can regulate stress early on in your career, by kind of being proactive to shut it off before it really gets started. Having mentors and coaches and value-added people in your life who can help you navigate your career. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Stress is stress, leadership is leadership, life is life. It's how you, like Dr. Foster said in the beginning of the show, it's how you respond to it. Dr. Foster?
Just one quick bounce off of what you just said there. You were talking about cloning, or having a clone of you. Here's the problem with leading a life of leadership through cloning. Mm-hmm. You copy the bad with the good.
Right.
This is why you don't want yes people.
Right.
You end up with a company that's flawed. It's full of flawed people because they're like you.
Right.
Instead of having a company that's full of flawed people that overlap in their good areas. Right. When you have this piece of wood, let's say, and a wood is only as strong as the lack of flaws in it. So let's say you have drilled holes all in this wood. It's going to break at some point because it's no longer strong.
That's right.
So if you have a bunch of people with a bunch of holes in them and there's no overlap, so that what I'm good at overlaps what you're bad at, if we don't have that in an organization, instead we all have the same thing we're good at and the same thing we're bad at, we are setting ourselves up for failure.
Right.
So as emerging leaders and as leaders, we have to understand that the worst thing we can do is say, I need a bunch of mini-me's.
Right.
Because when you say that, what you're acknowledging is how great you are without acknowledging how bad you are also.
I think that's great. And one final point to that too, it also stifles innovation. So now you're looking at, right. your company's not growing. And if your company is not growing, market share, next thing you know, you're out of here. So right. I think today was an awesome show. It was such good stuff talking about leadership stress. It was very important. I think it's timely, especially in the time in what we're dealing with, just globally, economically, financially, on just on a whole overall scale on the earth. That's just the whole earth. It's just in chaos and turmoil, and just understanding. You guys know, I feel like leadership is a lifestyle. It's all about how you carry yourself and your footprint and how you live your life. So I think it's important that we all learn how to navigate stress as individuals, whether it's in our personal lives or in our corporate lives. So Dr. Foster, let us know what's going on in your life, what you're doing, what you got, and all that good stuff.
All right, I guess it's my shameless plug, if you will. So again, Dr. Foster, you can check me out online at MaximumChange.com. That's my company name, Maximum Change. You can follow me on Twitter at Maximum Change. Listen, I also have a couple of books out. My latest one is The Open Organization. You can find it on Amazon, reasonably priced. By the way, if you're a leader or an emerging leader and you need a coach, get someone. Now, Dr. Hughes and I are both certified as coaches. Dr. Sturdivant, who couldn't join us today, Dr. Clark, Dr. Wallace, who's not with us. We are all executive coaches. That's what we do for a living. That's where our training is, and that's where we have cut our teeth in the business world, working with leaders and emerging leaders. So not that I'm the right one for you or someone else is not the right one for you. Find a coach, see if they're right for you, work with them. If not, they will help you find someone that is perfect for you, as Dr. Hees was saying. So again, check us out online, Maximum Change, or follow me on Twitter. Love to hear from you. Check out my book as well. Have a great day. Thank you.
Awesome. Dr. Ace, the Global Mentor Coach. Y'all know I love all things leadership. I believe leadership is a lifestyle. So I've got tons of books out there. I get teased about it, but I love
more than me.
So my latest book is The A+ Leader, and born out of my first book, Pillars for Christian Mentoring. I also have Pillars for Public Servants. So if you are in public office, even if you're a city manager, please, you want to get that book. So I've got some good stuff going on. I'm still rounding out the Global Mentor Network, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, you can catch me on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Pinterest. Dr. Latanya Hughes. I have a website, www.globalmentorcoach.com, and reach out to me and find out how you can become an A+ leader, or help me to develop the next generation of A+ leaders. So. Thank you for tuning in with us, Leadership Conversations. We missed our colleagues. Dr. Foster and I kind of held it down today. But Dr. Clark, Dr. Sturdivant, Dr. Wallace, we missed you guys so much. And hopefully they'll be able to catch us on the next show in 2 weeks. So until next time, see you guys later.